Hello children, welcome to NEET AIPMT Foundation Biology online classes. So, this is a biology session. We are going to discuss about sexual reproduction in plants. In your lower classes, you have studied about the different parts of plants and functions of plants. So, this particular lesson we are going to stress on the sexual reproduction in plants. So, the organ specialized to perform sexual reproduction in flowering plants or angiosperms are flowers. The flowers are basically modified condensed shoots, isn't it? The flowers are basically modified condensed shoots. A typical flower has 4 whorls. What are they? Sepals, okay. Next petals, okay. Next stamens, next carpel or ovary, okay. Gynoecium. So, they are having different names. You are already familiar. In 7th class itself you have studied. Okay, sepals are together called as calyx, and the petals are together called as corolla, and the stamens, this 5 or 6 stamens, whatever it may be, the stamens are together called as androecium, the male reproductive part of the flower, and the middle one, it is called as ovary or gynoecium or carpels. Okay, the stamens and carpels are respectively represent the male and female reproductive organs of the flower. Okay. So, in this lesson we are going to discuss about the structure of male reproductive part, that is androecium, how the male gametes are produced, that is pollen grains, and how the female gametes, that is the embryo sac, how it is formed, and the fertilization and the formation of fruit and the types of fruits, okay, and all those things we are going to discuss. Okay, are you ready children? Let us proceed. Sexual reproduction in plants. The flowers are the seat of sexual reproduction. The flowers are the seat of sexual reproduction in angiosperms, means flowering plants. In the flower, androecium, it consists of stamens, which represents the male reproductive organs, and gynoecium consists of pistil, which represents the female reproductive organs. Okay. The flower is called as the reproductive shoot. The flower consists of a male reproductive part, that is androecium, and the female reproductive part, that is gynoecium. In the sexual method, there is a fusion of 2 gametes. One is from male organ and other is from female organ of the plant, and the sexual reproduction involves the fusion of gametes and the formation of zygote. Okay, what is zygote? Zygote is the diploid cell which is formed as a product of fertilization. The sexual reproduction normally represents in the sexual reproduction normally represents in the mixing of characters from 2 parents, okay, and maintains the general vigor of the offspring. Okay. So, sexual reproduction has got greater importance. Why? Because there is a chance of genetic recombination, there is a chance of crossing over, there is a chance of production of new characters which help that species to survive better and better. Okay. In angiosperms, means in flowering plants, the sexual reproduction occurs in the flower, which is considered as especially modified shoot, modified reproductive shoot. Okay children, now The flower in angiosperms is a dwarf shoot. Dwarf means short. Dwarf shoot, a determinate stem apex bearing floral leaves subserving the function of reproduction. Okay, how it is modified and how it is turned into the flower. The typically this the floral leaves, the stem apex bearing the floral leaves is made up of calyx, consist of sepals, corolla consist of petals. These two being it is also called the perianth members. The flower consisting of two outer whorls, what are they? Calyx and corolla, they are together called as a perianth. An andrecium consists of stamens, the male reproductive part, and the gynoecium consists of carpels, it is the female reproductive part. Okay, any of these parts may be missing in a particular flower, then that flower is called as incomplete flower. If the flower possesses all these four, calyx, corolla, andrecium and gynoecium, four whorls, then the flower is considered as a complete flower. Okay. The flower axis, it is also called receptacle. Okay. So, we can call it as the pedicel is the stalk of the flower. Okay. The floral axis means the axis on which the flowers will present, it is called as a receptacle. So, now development of male reproductive organ. A stamen is the male reproductive unit of an angiospermous flower. It consists of anther and a filament. Okay. The anther is usually bilobed with each lobe having two theca or dithecus, we can call it as. So, now let us discuss about the development of male gametophyte. The stamen is the male reproductive part of the flower. It consists of anther and filament and the connective. Each anther is bilobed structure, dithecus I said, no, bilobed structure with each lobe containing two pollen sacs. Pollen sacs means total 4 pollen sacs, or they are also called microsporangia. Microsporangia, 2 in each lobe. Okay. There are 2 pollen sacs, okay, on each lobe. So, there are 2 lobes are there, total 4 pollen sacs are present. They are also called microsporangia. The microsporangial wall has 4 types of layers actually. So, that is epidermis, endothecium, middle layer, tapetum, like that. Okay. So, let us in total how many are there? There are 4 pollen sacs in which pollen grains are produced. The 2 lobes of anther are joined by a connective that contains the vascular bundle from filament that carries the nourishment. Okay. So, anther attached to the tube-like structure called filament. The filament contain the vascular bundles, okay, from the filament that carries the nourishment. Okay. Each from the filament that carries the nourishment. So, each pollen sac contains several pollen grains. Okay. So, like this. So, this is the anther consisting of filament. So, this is the tube which contain the nourishment tissue, helps in the nourishment. The filament containing vascular bundles, see, you can see here in the middle. Okay, xylem and phloem are present. So, this is the pollen sac. Okay, I said there are 4 layers. What are they? Epidermis, then endothecium or the fibrous layer, then the middle layer, the tapetum, and inside pollen is produced here. This is the pollen sac having 4 lobes. Okay, inside that pollen mother cell is present. Okay, as each cell of the sporogenous tissue is capable of giving rise to a microspore tetrad, it is called microspore tetrad. See, 4 cells are present here, microspore tetrad. So, each one is a potential pollen, or each one we can consider as a pollen mother cell or microspore mother cell, PMC. Okay. So, the anther wall is composed of 4 or 5 layers. The developing pollen grain consumes the products of the middle layer and tapetum, middle layer and tapetum. Middle layer means 1 to 6 layers are present in the middle layer. They degenerate during the maturity of anther. Okay, tapetum. What is tapetum means? The tapetal cells. This is the tapetum. The tapetal cells are nutritive. By these cells, the pisc bodies are produced, which help in the ornamentation of microspore wall. Okay. A compound sporopollenin is secreted by pisc bodies, which is deposited in the exine of microspore wall. Okay. So, this is the tapetum layer. The leaving behind the 2 layers, namely epidermis and endothecium. Epidermis means one cell thick and protective layer. This is the epidermis, protective in function. Then endothecium. What is endothecium? It is a single layered. Endothecium is a single layered. Cells have cellulose thickening with a little pectin and lignin in some cases. Okay, you heard about this pectin, cellulose, lignin in the cell wall of the plant cells, isn't it? Okay, it helps in the anther dehiscence, means when the anther is filled with pollen grain, it will break. That is called, the breaking of anther is called as dehiscence. Okay, let us proceed. So, like this, here the pollen mother cell will undergo the meiosis and form the pollen tetrad. Okay. Next, 4 pollen grains are produced finally. Okay. So, each pollen sac is termed as a microsporangium and is filled with a number of large sized cells called sporogenous cells. Very important. Here vocabulary is important, children. Microsporangium, pollen sac is also called as microsporangium. Microsporangium is filled with a number of large sized cells, they are called as sporogenous cells. The sporogenous cells may function directly as microspore mother cell, okay, MMC, or they are also called as PMC, pollen mother cells. Okay. Sporogenous cells may function directly as microspore mother cells or microsporocytes. They are also called as microsporocytes. Alternatively, the cells of the sporogenous tissue may undergo a few mitotic divisions. Mitotic divisions. Okay, there are 2 types of cell divisions are there, mitosis and meiosis. First, the mitosis occurs. Okay, it is a vegetative cell division. Okay, to add up to their number before entering the meiosis, because these sporogenous or microsporocytes number increased by this mitotic division. So, after that the meiosis occur. Okay, each microspore mother cell, that is MMC, has 2 sets of chromosomes, means they are diploid in nature because they are formed as a result of mitosis. Okay. So, 2 sets of chromosomes are present, 2n, therefore diploid. So, by a single meiotic division, each MMC gives rise to 4 haploid microspores. Okay. So, now after mitosis, these microspore mother cells are formed with 2 sets of chromosomes. So, then After that, the mitosis followed by meiosis by a single meiotic division. It is also called reduction division, and each MMC gives rise to 4 haploid microspore cells. See, so after the meiosis, the pollen mother cell is formed, that is diploid, means 2 sets of chromosomes are present. So, this diploid pollen mother cell will undergo meiosis and form a tetrad of pollen. Then finally 4 pollen grains are produced. 4 haploid microspores. Microspores are nothing but pollen grains. Okay. Next, initially means in the beginning, all the 4 spores remain enclosed in a common wall made up of callus. Okay. Then this 4-celled organization is called as a tetrad. A mature microspore is called pollen grain. Okay, the mature anther, what happened? Dehisces, breaks by means of slits. The pollen grain is uninucleate, means after the formation of the pollen grain, if you take it is a uninucleate, contain only one nucleus with 2-layered cell wall, The inner layer is thin and is made up of cellulose called as intine, whereas the outer layer is tough, it is cuticularized and often with a spinous outgrowth, it is known as exine. Okay. So, it is a pollen grain, for example, it possesses intine and exine. The exine is the outer layer which is having spinous outgrowths like this. Okay. The exine is made up of a complex substance called sporopollenin, that is resistant to the chemical and biological decomposition. Okay, you can see here young pollen grain. Okay, it is a haploid, only one nucleus, single chromosome set is present, haploid. Then to undergo the meiosis and produce 2 nuclei, generative nucleus and the tube nucleus. So, mature pollen grain consists of exine and intine. Okay. So, this intine, it is made up of cellulose, okay, and whereas the exine, it is made up of special substances, sporopollenin. Okay. So, the pollen grain protoplast is uninucleate. This is uninucleate, means only one nucleus is present in the beginning, but at the time of liberation it becomes 2 to 3 celled. The wall or covering of the pollen grain is called as sporoderm. It is called a sporoderm. Okay. Then it has 2 layers, outer exine, inner intine. The outer layer exine is thick and sculptured or smooth. Okay. And it made up of sporopollenin, which is resistant to chemicals, biological decomposition. So, pollen wall is preserved for long periods of fossil deposits also. Okay. At certain places the exine remains thin. These thin areas are known as germ pores. The thin areas of exine, they are called as germ poles. Okay. And when there is when they are circular in outline, they are called as germinal furrows also when they are elongated. The intine is thin and elastic. It emerges out, the intine is thin and elastic. It emerges out as the pollen tube from the germpore during germination. So, this intine only will form the pollen tube during germination. Okay. The pollen grain is the first cell of the male gametophyte. The size of the nucleus increases and it divides mitotically to produce a bigger vegetative cell or tube cell and smaller generative cell. Okay. The vegetative cell is bigger, has abundant food reserve and a large irregularly shaped nucleus. The generative cell is small, spindle shaped with dense cytoplasm. Generative cell, generative nucleus and tube nucleus two are formed in a matured pollen grain. Okay. So, at one or more places the exine is very thin or missing, giving an appearance of a pore called as a germpore. There are usually 3 germpores in dicots and 1 germpore in monocots. Okay. The development of the male gametophyte is more or less uniform in all flowering plants. The pollen grain is the first cell of a male gametophyte. The size of the nucleus increases and it divides mitotically to produce bigger vegetative cell and smaller generative cell, vegetative nucleus and generative nucleus. Okay. So, like this. Okay. Next, at this stage the dehiscence means mature pollen grains are formed. Now, dehiscence, breaking of the anther occur. The anther dehiscence takes place and the 2-celled pollen grains are released. In a large majority of the flowering plants, pollen is shed at a 2-celled stage. However, in plants such as cells, okay, food grain crops, the generative cell divides to form 2 male gametes while the pollen is still within the anther. Okay. In those cases where the pollen is shed at 2-celled stage, the generative cells divide, after pollen has landed on the stigma of the flower or upon its germination. What happen? This generative cell will divide, okay, like this. So, you can take this is the pollen grain, mature pollen grain, consists of cytoplasm and the nucleus. It is intine and exine, it is having the exine having some pores, germ pores they are called, okay, the cytoplasm. Now, in the second stage the tube nucleus, two nuclei are produced, generative nucleus and tube nucleus, the generative cell and tube nucleus. So, this generative cell, okay, then the tube nucleus develops into this pollen tube is produced. As soon as the pollen grain fall on the stigma of a flower, female reproductive part of the flower or gynoecium. So, this pollen grain germinates to produce a pollen tube. Okay. Internally this generative nucleus and the tube nucleus too are present. Okay. It matures to produce male cells, 2 male nuclei are produced. Okay. So, I hope you understood, children. Please read the book. Thank you for watching our video. Have a good day.